Part 1. The Legacy of My Grandparents, Canning Education. When I began living with my grandparents around the time I entered the elementary school at the age of 7, a new type of training began. In a booming voice every morning at 5, my grandfather told me to get up and study. If I tried closing my eyes and pretending to sleep, he'd strike my calf with his cane. I had no choice but to hoist myself out of bed and sit at my desk, learning over a math textbook. Electricity was only available for 4 hours a day. The rest of the time, we had to rely on candlelight or lamps that illuminated only a 1 meter radius. But I did my homework under that tiny circle of light and prepared for the next day's classes, dreaming of a future. The candlelight was a sign of wealth, so I used to brag to my friends that we have a light even at night. During childhood, I dreamed of becoming a doctor like my grandmother, who was a pediatrician. It was more than a wish. It was a goal that I was desperate to achieve. Achieving my grandmother working in a white gown with her peers at a hospital made me want to live like that. And because of my mother was mentally ill, I thought if I studied hard and became a great doctor, I might be able to cure her. I also hoped to relieve some of my grandparents' burden as they struggled to raise me and take care of my mother in the mental hospital. They supported my studies to the fullest. In North Korea, a cheap sawdust pencil broke easily. My grandparents never bought me those, but always filled my case with the best pencils available. I once asked my grandmother if we could buy cheap pencils and get us snacks instead. She replied, "You need good weapons to win at war, and you need good tools to study properly." Later, she compromised. If I got full marks on a test, she bought me all the snacks I wanted. My favorite was dubbap, a common street food made of rice stuffed into fried tofu, topped with a spicy sauce. Whenever I got good grades, my grandmother took me to a tofu rice place, and I'd wolf down 10 of them. Despite my small frame, I had a huge stomach, which shocked the owner. Tofu rice was a symbol of my achievements and a source of motivation to study. Some might consider my grandfather's Don Canning child abuse, but in North Korean society where human rights don't exist, that stern but warm education gave me the strength to expand my thoughts and interpret my life. I call it the love of Canning education. Every day I studied through the night under candlelight and lived harder than anyone. In North Korea, it was impossible to imagine searching the internet to study for a test or do homework. Typing documents on computers was unheard of, and every assignment had to be written by hand. From elementary school to university, we had to study revolutionary history, memorizing in detail the lives, ideologies, and activities of Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and Kim Jong-un. Bad grades in revolutionary history could prevent you from advancing to the next grade. So I used to memorize textbooks by copying them by hand and making mock tests. It was arduous work, but my grandparents' endless support kept me going. My favorite subjects were math, physics, and chemistry because of the world of science is based on logic and precise answers. I wanted to figure out my own way to understand the world. My grandparents' strict Canning education wasn't just about raising a smart child. It was their way teaching me to face hardship, push it forward, and turn every challenge into an opportunity. I learned from the way they questioned, listened, and thought with me, respecting me as a human being. I think this was a North Korean interpretation of Habruta education. Habruta is a traditional Jewish method of education through working in pairs or groups to ask questions and learn through debate. No one in North Korea knew that, but I experienced it naturally through my grandparents who always asked me questions, not simple comments or orders, but conversations that started with, "What do you think?" They never brushed off my opinions because of my age. Once in elementary school, a neighbor came to our house to console my grandmother about a problem. I was doing my homework in the corner of the room when my grandmother asked, "Eunhee, what do you think about her story?" The neighbor looked at me, surprised, but I gave my opinion as I always did. When something happened in the family, my grandparents always included me in the discussion. My opinions were accepted as a serious alternative, which made me feel like an important part of my family from a young age. Because I was raised this way, I was braver than my classmates. I liked to be around girls 10 years older than I was and enjoyed understanding and explaining new concepts in my own words. When I was 14 in the orphanage, a teacher hit me with a pointer, resulting in a bruise. I couldn't accept the reason for my punishment, so I went to the teacher's office and asked her to explain why I received the beating. After that incident, my teacher always tried to give a reason for punishments and explain them. I was a student who raised the questions, but I was also the most enthusiastic student in class, and my grades were at the top. People used to call me airplane because I could solve math problems so fast. Being able to think independently and express myself brought me the greatest pride. In middle school, our physics teacher got sick, and the substitute was an amazing teacher who made the material easy to understand. It made me think about what it meant to be a teacher. A true teacher wasn't a person with a vast knowledge, but someone who taught through the eyes of students. I realized this because of the thinking skills my grandparents gave me. North Korea always prioritized order and the party's ideology over individual thought. In a Confucian and conservative society, children are expected to obey and show respect to elders. In North Korea, this is considered a common virtue. But thanks to my grandparents' lessons, even as a child in a confined environment, I was able to express my thoughts, engage in debate, and sometimes share opinions with older people. They taught me the value of freedom. And slowly, I began building a mind that finally felt like it belonged to me.